Hello and welcome to this episode of the Code Maven or Rust Maven workshop. I keep using both names. I used to have a website called Perl Maven and still have it. And I started with that thing, wrote about Perl a lot. And then when I started to write about other things, then I created a new website called Code Maven. And I figured out that now that I'm writing on Rust, I will just use a subdomain of that, and I'm going to call it Rust Maven. So that's the story about this all the Maven things, and nothing to do with the Java Maven. Okay, it's just a word. And my name is Gabor Szabó. I'm going to actually introduce myself through some of the pages. So let me share just the screen, and then we get started with that. I just keep built-in display and share. Okay, so now I can focus on this, looking at this screen, and maybe I don't know if I want to even put my image there. Let's see if I put it onto the top right corner of the of my big screen. I have no idea why the previous video it put it in the middle. Zoom has strange things doing. Anyway, in this workshop, and if you're watching the video, then still this workshop, we're going to talk about GitHub pages. First of all, what are GitHub pages and why are they good? I don't have too much to say about this really. The reason I'm using GitHub pages is because it's easy to use once you learned how to do it, of course, and it's free for now at least. So why not? Obviously, or not obviously, GitHub pages allows us to create front-end based websites. I would say static websites, but if you have a lot of JavaScript, then it might be dynamic, and you will see at least one of my sites is slightly dynamic. And the one that we are going to create later today is also is going to be slightly dynamic. It's not really just have some JavaScript that create. And by the way, thank you for the person who recommends inviting Spanish speakers. Definitely, please. I mean, they need to know English because the presentations are going to be in English. I could give it in Spanish as well, very broken Spanish, but I think right now I'm going to focus on the English version. So yeah, I would be happy if you invited more people from the other language groups or whatever groups you have. I have more of a view on English speaker Rust groups. So okay, so let's go. Let's have a couple of let's take a look at a couple of websites that are built on GitHub pages, and we'll see how they look or what do they do. Okay, so the thing that I said just earlier is that basically there's no backend. Okay, you can't have a backend running anything on the backend. You can generate static pages, and then you can have some data there, and then you can have JavaScript code because that runs in the browser in the client. But on GitHub pages, you can't have anything running while the user is visiting the page. So that's the big drawback. But tons of websites you can do without any of that. So the first one I wanted to show you is my own web page, my own sort of home page. This used to be a dynamic page, but a couple of months ago, I decided there is nothing really to be dynamic about it. So I converted my Perl script, actually. This site was written, I don't know, 15 or 20 years ago in Perl. So I changed it to, instead of generating the pages on demand when the user visits, instead of that, it generates all the pages, all the static pages. Yeah, there's an archive here. So there are quite a few pages here and various other things. They are generated on the website, on GitHub pages by GitHub, actually. On the servers of GitHub, they are generated, and then they are just there on the website, okay? And every time I make a change in my Git repository and push it out, the site is regenerated. All the pages are regenerated. It's couple of, I think it's 1.5 minutes or so. That's it. The next one, and this is good for Spanish speakers as well. It's a website called Cantonico. It's basically a dictionary, like the Google Translate sort of, but it's also a lot more because it has various other features for the Ladino language, which is what they also call Judeo-Espanol. So this is the language of the Jews who were expelled from Spain in 1492, so roughly 500 years ago. And they kept the language and they spoke the language. So you can type in words in Ladino and you will get the translations in various other languages, including modern Spanish and whatever, English and so on. Now this website, as you can see, it's dynamic. So it has some JavaScript code doing it, nothing on the backend. It's built out of, I think, something like 10 different repositories. There are lots of Python. There's a Python project basically, or several Python libraries that are together merging all these repositories, various sources of data, and then creating this website, both the translation part and then all kind of for example, here you have messages where partial in English, sorry, partial in Ladino, partial in Hebrew. And then you can also hear the sound of the person reading the Ladino. So it's all kind of things. But the main thing is that this is basically a bunch of data. And then I have some Python program that collects the data and generates the static pages. And I think this one takes longer. I think this one takes like 8 or 10 minutes, if I remember correctly. Actually, we could even check this. Let me check this. So there's the GitHub subgub.com. That's the source code of the first website, the subgub.com website. And we are using the GitHub Actions to generate the pages. And this one, so my own personal website, takes 2.5 minutes to be generated. It's part of it is installing all the necessary libraries. So I could actually speed this up, but I don't really care that much of that. I don't update it so often to make it worse, improving it. Now the other one, this Cantonico, it has its own GitHub organization, and inside you can see there are like 18 repositories, and the main one I have to find because I haven't touched it for quite a while. I think this is the main one. And here is the action. I'm not sure. Okay, it says 4 minutes now. I'm not really sure that this is the one. I have to remember. Let me try to see it. Code. There is a separate repository runs the code. So this one. Okay, so this is the one that runs the code. So apparently it reduced it to 4.5 minutes. Okay, nice. I didn't remember that. So that's the time it takes from when I push it out the change till it generates the whole website and deploys it. And you can see a few of them which are very much faster, but they were stopped because I pushed out several changes. I pushed out a new change before this one was fully generated. So GitHub just stopped the generation and then generated the new one. So that's how it works. So this is the second side I wanted to show. Then the third one I would like to show is the Rust Maven website. And let me enlarge the font. The font, actually, the content doesn't really matter. This one, how does it look like? Let's see. Okay, so GitHub, subgub, rust.codemaven. This is the repository. The source code, the source code of all of these pages, all of these sites are in public GitHub repositories. So this is where the actions are, and it's using a Rust project that I'm working on to generate this site. And there are a couple of other sites that are using this. Well, I think all of them, except of one, all of them are mine. And so this one takes slightly more than 1 minute, 1 minute and 10, 15 seconds to regenerate the website. And here, it's almost fully static. I think it's still, yeah, still I don't have the search, but basically it's a static site, right? So it regenerates just all the pages. And if I take a look at it, there are like 200 and so on pages. And this one is using a Rust project. So the way it's basically working, that it's downloading the binary of that other Rust project, which will regenerate the pages, and then run it on the source data, and that's how the pages are generated. The actual source code of the code that generates this site is this is it. This ssg.codemaven. So this is the website, the CodeMaven static site generator. I didn't have a better name to give to it. So far it's called CodeMaven static site generator. The last one I think that I wanted to show you is this one, which I started to work on. Then I don't work on too much. The interesting part of this is that it's automatically running every, I think, hour. Okay, we can take a look at it actually. If I click as the source code is here. No, actually, I need to go to configuration. So this is also, it's a separate project, has the source code it's running, and a separate project which has the configuration file and which actually runs the regeneration of the site. So here we can see that it runs every apparently 6 hours. That's how it's configured. It looks like more or less 6 hours. I can take a look at it, how it's exactly configured. GitHub. We're going to take a look at exactly of this. But this is, yeah, it's configured. It's like a cron job. So it's configured to run every 6 hours. I could have configured it to run it every hour. And then it collects data from various RSS feeds, basically, about Rust, and then creates this website. And I wanted to add like email sending and stuff, but I haven't got around to it. So I'm not advertising it too much, this website. Okay, so let me get back a little bit. What else do I have here? This is just the source code I showed you. Okay, we're going to get to now actually creating our own first website. But before that, let me again just get back to my own little website and introduce myself. So as I told you, my name is Gabor Szabó, and I have been programming for about 40 years and teaching programming for 24, I think. For many years, I taught Perl and then Python. And in the last year or so, I started to learn and teach also, Rust. And all kind of other things. So I also teach Git and GitHub and Docker and a couple of other things which are sort of related. So companies usually invite me, and I teach at the company either online or in person. I also teach at one of the universities here. So that's about me and about this workshop. I wanted to point out that basically I'm doing it free of charge, thanks to all the people who support me on a monthly basis. And there are on the meetup page, there are links to both the GitHub sponsors, the Patreon, and my PayPal page, where if you found that these videos, these workshops help you, then I would appreciate if you decided to support me so I can give more of these both to you and to other people as well. Okay, so let's create our own GitHub page. And up till now, okay, so one more thing. Up till now, all the sites that you saw had their own address. So it's some own domain name, subgub.com or the Cantonico, or in this case, some subdomain of the CodeMaven, and the Rust News also a subdomain of the CodeMaven, but none of them had anything to do with GitHub. That's sort of an extra, For that, you have to own a domain name to be able to do that. Because I don't want to assume that, first I'm going to assume that you don't have a domain name, so we're going to use the domain of GitHub. As my user is called subgab, that's SZABGAB. So this is, if I go here, this is my username. This is my username on GitHub. And because this is my username on GitHub, my default website GitHub page would be my username.github.io. Now, if I press enter, it doesn't find it. Okay, it doesn't exist. I removed it so I can recreate something during this workshop. In order to create this website, first we are going to use the relatively simple way using just plain Markdown, and then we are going to change it to use Rust. So in order to create this, we need to go to GitHub and create a repository. Okay, I think inside your own account. Okay, and the repository needs to be, okay, without all this HTTP, needs to be your username.github.io. That's which is also going to be the website, but this needs to be the repository. So there are a couple of special repository names in GitHub. This is one of them. Okay, I make it public, so you will also be able to see it. I think it could work also with a private repository, but I see less of a point of that. I ask it to add a README because that's going to be easier for me now in this scenario. I don't care about the git ignore and don't care about the license. I click on create repository. Okay, so it created a repository with with just a single README file in it. And if I go to the actions, I can see that it already started to run GitHub Actions. So if you're not familiar with this, GitHub Actions is basically a service provided by GitHub and at the end by Microsoft that allows you to run all kinds of programs, okay, on their servers. So whenever you trigger a run on GitHub Actions, they will basically launch a computer for you, a virtual machine somewhere, a virtual computer. You can install anything on it. You can run all kinds of programs on it, and it has a limited time span. I think based on your account and based whether it's your repository is open or closed, I mean public or private, there are some limitations or how much you can use it. I never even got close to the limitations. Okay, so I think if your repository is public, then I think there's no limitation basically. But there is I think a 1 hour maybe limit per each run, but for not the total time. So it's quite nice. Okay, and it's free. So it ran and it now stopped running. Basically, this one, I didn't have to configure this workflow because it's a default workflow that generates the web page from that README file that was added to the repository. So if I go back to this this tab now and reload, pressing Ctrl R, reload it, then here it is. Now I have a web page, and that's it basically. We could stop at this point, and you could start just building the website. Okay, so let me just explain a little bit more, and if you have any questions, please feel to ask. And if there is already a question, it's kind of the logic behind services like code spaces. I have no idea. Okay, I don't really know code spaces. Okay, so I don't know if this is how it works. Okay. The whole story of GitHub page, the actions. Okay, I'm going to have a separate workshop where we are focusing on these. Is basically the original idea was to, I guess that was the original idea. I'm not really sure, but I guess is to allow continuous integration, basically to allow you to run your tests on every time you push out some code. Okay, but then it was, and then it would set up a web server or a Docker image or whatever. By default, I think it's Linux, but you could also install Windows and Mac. So you can do all kind of really interesting stuff. You can have multiple of these running and communicating with each other. So one of them may be the database, the other one is your real code, but that's a different workshop. We don't go there now. Okay, so I'm going to make a little bit more changes here, and then we go on to the next item, basically. So by default, it just picked up the README-MD file and generated a page from there. And I can come here, and I could actually clone it to my computer and make changes there. But even without that, I could make changes. So I can come here. I'm in the GitHub repository. In the UI, there is this whatever pen-like thing, and then I can make changes. So I can say, let's say, hello, Rust people. Okay, and let's say I put 2, and I had same. There is some text here. Okay, and I can put here what is a crab, a snake, and a camel. Just so the 3 languages I use most will be represented here. Okay, so I commit the changes, commit message. Of course, you could add some nice commit message if you wanted. I clicked on commit. Now, immediately when I committed, the action is triggered. It says now it's queued. Now it converted into in progress. So when there is a trigger, then first it puts in the queue, and then you can see it's yellowish thingy moving because now it's working. And we could click on this one, and you would see actually the progress of how it works. You could see what it's doing. Okay, it doesn't do much. Okay, but at this point, but it regenerates the pages, and you can see several steps. There are actually 3 steps here. Okay. And for some reason, no, okay, now I can see both of them. So it took it 42 seconds, and it deployed the new page. If I go back and reload it, then you can see the rest of the content that I put here. Okay, so now you can go on with this and add any content you like. You can create multiple files, and then each one of them will be its own page. Actually, if I want to, I could go to this one, which is this github.subgub. Okay, so this is another one of my, this is an experimental, basically, website where I play with this kind of plain GitHub pages. So this page was created by these plain markdown files. We can look at the source code. If I click on this, let me see if this leads me. Yes, this is the real subgub.github.io. Originally, this was on the same place where we are working now, but I decided to move it so I will be able to show you. So it has, actually, I think the README is not even showing anymore. Okay, why? Because I have an index.md. Okay, so ideally you would create an index.md file, markdown, so md, and that would be the main page, and the README would be more of a description of the repository only. So here in the README you can see some explanation, which is not even correct anymore, I think. But maybe it is. Yeah, I think maybe it is. I'm not sure anymore. This was the old way. I think this is not, I'm not sure if it's still in use. Earlier, this was the way to map a separate hostname to this GitHub page. These days, I think if you go to the settings on the repository, and then pages, then here, custom domain, under here, this is where you put in your custom URL. Of course, this is not enough. This, if you add here the information, this will let GitHub know to accept the request coming to this address and serve the pages from that website. In order to this to really work, you also have to go to your DNS provider, so the one that maps this address to the correct IP address on GitHub, and we'll do it in the next part of this meeting after the break, when you're going to have your own experiments. Okay, what else shall I show? So, right, one more thing I wanted to show here, and this is actually, I have to go back for this to the real subgob. So you might have noticed that if we go and open this website, github.subgob.com, which is coming from the real repository, it has these nice-ish colors, way nicer than anything I could do. Where does this come from? Okay, and compared to that, this is what we created now. Okay, how could we make it nicer? So in the repository, I'm going to copy it from this. There can be an _config YAML file. So I'm going to copy this one now, because this is in the real subgob repository. And I go to my own repository, the subgob GitHub, okay? And I'm creating here a new file. And I don't remember, how do I create now new files? You know what? I don't know. So you could do this. Yeah, create new file. Okay, I found it. Config YAML. I paste it here. And instead of this title, I put demo for Rust meeting. What it does, it configures the title of the website. I don't remember what is this, and the theme. And this is the same theme that you saw there on website. Okay, I'm going to add this, and we are going to wait. And in the meantime, I'm going to drink a little bit. And if you have any questions, please ask now. Okay. So the background here is that basically GitHub. So, okay, what can you use here? First of all, you can use the GitHub flavored Markdown. Okay, so all the content that you can write, you can use any of this. There is a specification. Okay, you saw a few of these things. You can do a lot of things. You can embed images. You can create tables. A lot of very nice things. Okay, this is what you can use. This default thing, when we are using Markdown, plain Markdown, and let basically GitHub run whatever it wants, it runs a static site generator called Jekyll, which is written in Ruby actually. Okay, so it's using, this is one of the most popular static site generators. And so in the configuration file, okay, in the configuration file, if I can find it, yeah, this one, we can pick one of the themes that GitHub supports with Jekyll. And you can search for it, which one of use, whatever you like. And actually, I can show you, and I can put the link there, GitHub subgob with this one. This is a Python programming course I'm teaching right now. But one of the things that my students do is create their own website. So you can take a look at all the websites of these are biologists, okay? And they are using just static things. So they don't use Python, they don't use Rust for the website, but you can take a look, some very nice examples there. So I will include this link as well. Right. So I talked about this, and now we can change up and start using Rust. Or actually, before that, I can suggest one more thing you can take a look at. So there is this website. I'm just reading one of the comments. Little by little, it's making sense to me why Markdown-based tools like Meta's Docosaurus and Rust's MDBook work that well with GitHub pages. Well, yes. So Markdown is an extremely nice idea. Was an extremely nice idea about 20 years ago, I think, sort of. And then it was extended in all kind of directions. So that's the reason there is a GitHub flavored Markdown, because they have their own definitions, and this is what you can use in issues, in README files, in tons of other places, and then other tools can work with this. Okay, or most of the things are the same. So, as I told you. Where is it? Let me find it. Not this one. Now I have too many things open here. This one, okay? So here, I didn't have to configure anything. It by default started to generate the pages. Actually, you could create similar sites on any repository, but then it won't be this default URL. So that's a separate story. But in any case, you can go to the settings, and in the settings there is the of your repository, and then there is the pages, whatever tab it's called or place, and here it by default said that was configured that it has this website. This is the URL, and it's being deployed from a branch. Okay. Earlier, there was the idea that you might have a separate branch in your main repository for the pages. I never really used, I used it once. It always confused me. So I just, okay, use the branch. So now it's using the branch, and I'm using the main branch here, okay? The default one. And I could pick another branch if I had one. And then I could even put the Markdown files in a subfolder, so they won't bother the rest of the repository. Okay, so let's say you have a Rust project which has the standard repositories, the SRC, and whatever else repositories, folders, and then you could create a folder which is called /docs and put there some Markdown files and make the GitHub pages generate the website from those files in the docs folder, and then they won't be around your source code. Okay, it will be a separate folder, so that could be done. But what we are trying to do now is switch over to use some other programming, other tool, and not Jekyll. You could go and here and say, okay, no, instead of using the branch, which is like maybe I have to explain a little bit here. So historically, this was the only way to generate GitHub pages from branches, okay? And then later, when GitHub Actions became a thing, then GitHub started to provide this one that you can also add GitHub Actions. And at one point, they also started to show that actually, even if you're deploying from a branch, in reality, behind the scenes, it's actually some GitHub action. And this is what we saw that the GitHub action started to run. Okay, and maybe they will take away this part from a branch at one point. I don't know. I hope not, because it's the nice and simple way. So now, instead of saying, okay, do the default thing from whatever branch we picked, I can tell, oh, go and run some GitHub actions that I am going to configure. And if I am going to configure it, then I can do it by picking one of these. So this would basically set up Jekyll again, which would not make much sense at this point. I could also create add GitHub action configurations that use any of the other static site generators. And on this side, you can see static site generators in many languages. They have like 355 here listed. A lot of them, these tools are not listed here. For example, the one I'm writing is not listed here. It's not that good, so maybe it shouldn't anyway. If you're interested in specifically the Rust ones, then here you are. You have these three that you could use, that they offer. I mean, you could use anything, but they use. So you could somehow integrate MDBook and generate your website from MDBook, and that's it. And I guess many Rust projects do something like this, and I think that is what Julian mentioned earlier. So whatever. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run my own Rust code in order to generate the website. So back here, GitHub pages, I told it to use GitHub actions, and I don't configure anything. And I don't know what happened now. Okay, nothing. Okay, so, and I think the website is still, let me close this because it's bothering me. This one is not the one. This one is not interesting. This one is interesting. So the website is, oh, sorry, I forgot to show you that after I changed added this underscore config, then our website, the one that we were creating, suddenly got this nice layout. Okay, so this is because the underscore config. Now we're going to throw away all this, basically, and we are starting to generate the website from our own Rust code. For this, I'm going to, now I won't write Rust code here on the UI, so I'm going to clone this repository to my own computer. And for this, I forgot to create a new terminal. How can I, just a second, I have to move somehow, get some, yeah. Just a second, I have to pick it from my other screen. Good, okay. So git clone and the URL. So let me enlarge the fonts here a little bit. And that you can see, I copied the address of this repository and I'm going to clone it. Okay, nothing special here. subgub.github.io. So you can see here is this config file and the README MD. Now I would like to create here a Rust crate, basically. So I say cargo. I could say cargo new and create a subfolder, but instead of that, I am going to use cargo init minus name, I think, site builder. Doesn't really matter what name I give, and dot. I think that's how it will create a. Yeah, it created a crate, basically created the cargo table and the src file. So if I run git status, we have all these things. It also added a git ignore, basically created a crate here. Let me try to run this with the Visual Studio Code and see if this will work nice for us or not. Okay, so what do we have here? Mains src. Okay, I can just run it, cargo run, and it works. It generates a hello world file. Now I need to find something where I can take a look at something. Just a second. So I created a skeleton, and I'm going to use that for my examples. Okay, so I won't have to write everything really from scratch. So I'm going to copy the first snippet of code, and I'm going to explain it to you. Okay, this is was all commented out. Here it is. So what I wrote here, not much. Okay, what I wrote here in this main basically I just tell it to return an error if there is an error. So I can just, I don't know why I'd use unwrap here. Anyway, maybe I could remove that one, right? Let's see. Okay, so I'm creating a folder called underscore site. Why? Because the default way GitHub allows us to generate and deploy a website is from this folder. Okay, that's a rather arbitrary name of a folder. We need to create that, and then I create some HTML content. Very simple for now, just displaying h1 in this variable called HTML, and I write the file underscore site index HTML, and I put this content there. That's the whole thing. So I can run this cargo run, and if everything works fine, then I'm going to have a folder now, and in there is this index.html. Now we don't want to. There are basically there could be two strategies. One, that you generate the HTML locally and then add it to the repository and push it out, and that's fine. But that's not what we want. We want the pages to be generated on GitHub pages. So git status, we're going to exclude this underscore site. So I'm editing. Oh, I'm going to show you a mess here. Git ignore. Okay, I am adding the underscore site here. Okay, and I used Vim just to confuse everyone. Okay, so now it's going to ignore it. I'm not going to add it to the website. So git add git commit add first version. So far it's good. I have now a crate in this repository that can generate a website, well, a single page. But how can I tell GitHub to run this action? So for this, I need to create the GitHub folder and workflows subfolder. And I have to copy, I'm going to copy, I don't have to, but I'm going to copy from the GitHub pages with Rust skeleton, the file, okay? This is the file I prepared, and I'm going to copy it to GitHub workflows to this one. Okay, let's take a look at this file. I didn't want to spend way too much time on this. This is a GitHub action configuration file that tells us to run it every time we push out the code, or if there is a pull request as well. Set some permissions, doesn't really matter for us. But these are the actions, these are the things that it will run. It will check out our source code. Of course, we need our source code. Rust update, it will update Rust basically. Rust C -v minus capital, lowercase, uppercase. It's just, I put it here just so I will be able to see which version of Rust it ran. Okay, doesn't really matter. Then I added this cargo build and cargo test. Actually, there is no test in this project now, so there's not much point of it. Ran cargo. Actually, I'm going to get rid of these for now. I don't really need these. Okay, what I need, and I don't even need this one. Okay, I don't even need to build this one. Okay, so well, I can get rid of this. What is interesting is to run cargo run, and then we have to do these actions. These are sets of commands basically in this GitHub workflow that GitHub provides. So we are using the latest versions of both the configure page and the upload pages. Okay, so these are the ones. Basically, the upload pages is the one that is looking at the underscore site folder. Okay, and then this part of the workflow is the one that actually deploys it to the GitHub pages. So git status, git add GitHub, git commit, add workflow. Okay, and now I'm going to push it out. And let's see what's going on. Let me find, okay, actions. Okay, so you can see it's queued. Okay, I just pushed it out. GitHub noticed it. Now it's in progress. It noticed that I have a workflow, my own workflow. This was the commit message that I had. That's what you see. And now we are waiting. Actually, it's in progress, so I can click also on it, and it's already in the deploy phase. I can click on the build to see the details. And you remember that I had this set update Rust. So this was the output of that. And I also had this printing out the version number of Rust. And this was the output of that one. And this is one, the building the website. Okay, that was the cargo run. Okay, so you can take a look at if you have an error. Okay, then you can get into details, and this is how you can get results or feedback. Okay, now it's green, so it went through. And if I go back to the website and reload it, now it's back to what we created, this hello from Rust. Okay, and I'm way over the time that I thought I'll need. I thought I'm going to do it in 20 or 30 minutes, but it's already 50 minutes, so we'll probably have to change the schedule. Okay, so this was the first example I wanted to show you. And if I go back to it, basically what we needed to do is to write some Rust code that will create this underscore site folder and put an index.html there. Now, from this point, you can generate any number of HTML files there. You can copy their images. You can put anything you put under this folder will be deployed on the website. Okay, so you can put their images or CSS files or JavaScript files, whatever you like. Everything will be deployed. Okay, so now I'm going to copy another version of this, just so you can see. Okay, someone asked something, so let me read this. Why does the page YAML file says that GitHub will deploy the workflow on Ubuntu? Does the operating system matter? Okay, so this one, I think you are asking, the Ubuntu latest. This is the way for us to configure what kind of operating system we would like our code to run on. It doesn't deploy there. It deploys, it runs. This is the definition of the machine that our code will run on. The deployment at the end is just static files. So I don't know what, it's just static, it's just some folder somewhere. It doesn't matter what operating system, I don't care. Okay, I don't know. I also don't know. What this one sets is the operating system that I'm running on. Okay, and I prefer to run on Linux. Okay, that's it. And I think they have Ubuntu Linux, or they have either Ubuntu Linux or Windows or Mac OS. And then on top of these, on top of the Ubuntu, you could run Docker images if you want. But again, that's already the other workshop, third workshop where we are talking about the workflows and the actions. But I think so. If this wasn't what you are asking, then please repeat the question or ask differently. Okay, so I commented out the code. Yeah, welcome. The code that we used. I put a new one here. The difference and added this one. Okay, and I had to, for this, I need to also add a dependency, and the dependency looks like this. Okay, so cargo toml, I need to add this dependency. Now let me show you why does it look so strange. So create markdown. There is this create called markdown, which can convert markdown files to HTML, and it is in version 0.3, I think. But someone started to read, or maybe it's the same person, I don't know, actually, rewrite the whole thing using the same name, but haven't released a public version, an official, how shall I call it, an official version yet, okay? So haven't fully replaced this name yet. So in order to use the one that was released, if we go to the source code, okay, of this repository, so it's probably the same person. Okay, he says it here that we should use, this is the most recent one. So this one, that was the one we should use. So this is what I put here, okay? This is the dependency. And then I created this function just to make it easier for me to pass all kind of parameters that I used. I'm using the same code basically in the static site generator of the Rust Maven website. And then the changes in the main code is that instead of just taking some plain HTML, I'm reading in the content of the now fixed the README file. I read it in. This is in Markdown, so I put it in a variable called Markdown. And then I used this Markdown to an HTML function to convert it into HTML. And if it was successful, then I saved it in the site _site index HTML. So let me try this cargo run. Let me try it locally before I put it out. Git add, git status. Yeah, these were the files that were changed. Git commit -m and use markdown. Okay, git push. Now that I push it out, it will start running and will generate install everything that cargo run installs and generate the website. So just to be clear, I'm not really sure what does this markdown exactly support. Probably not the same thing as the GitHub flavor markdown. But I found it a nice tool to convert markdown files to HTML. So back here, oh, it's already done. Okay, you can see 30 seconds. Okay, it's even faster than earlier, even though this one now installed a crate and probably some dependencies. And if I come back here, it now took the README file and converted that one. Yes, yeah. So this is a MD Markdown HTML site generator. So this is basically what all the static site generators do. Okay, just they have some configuration files and all kind of other things, and so on. So okay, so now we took the README file and based on and converted it into Markdown. And this is it. So if I take a look at it, view source, this was generated. Let me enlarge it a little bit. This was generated from the Markdown by this Markdown crate. Okay, fancy. Last example, I'm going to use a template system now because this one is just the Markdown converted into HTML. So this is just the content. We would like to make it nicer, to look somewhat nicer, okay? I'm not really good at creating nice sites, so what I'm going to do is just show you how you can use a template system. And for that, I'm going to add Liquid, and probably there are new, I'm not sure, maybe there is newer version of it. I just copied the one that I had in some of the examples. So I'm going to use the Liquid template, and I'm going to have a meeting about going deeply into the Liquid template. because I was using it, and probably I will have another meeting with other templates, but for now that's good enough. And here is the code. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to share all of this with you, so no worry. Okay, so this is the last version. Let me comment out the previous main code and go over this one. So here, again, we just create the site. It's missing something. Well, I can change. Oh, right. Okay. In addition to adding the code, I also had to create a template. Okay. So what does a template look like? And mkdir, actually, I can copy -r from the, where was it? Here it is, templates. So I copy -r here. There's not much there. Okay, there is a single template. So how does this template look like? Not this one, sorry. Page HTML. This is the template. So this is just HTML, and then it has these placeholders or variables. So once I pass some value to the title field, it will be inserted here in this point and here as well. And whatever I pass to the content field will be inserted in this place. And the rest is just HTML. So I can have some kind of a design. I'm using here Bulma, not using too much here, so doesn't matter. Okay, so this is a template, and then I can have many markdown files and insert into these places. So and it still doesn't like me because I don't know why. Okay, because it was thinking about it. Now it's okay. So what I have here is creating the site. So far is okay. I'm using include str. That's basically I used here. I don't really need it in this case. It's good. It was very good for the SSG I was creating, because that way I could embed my templates into my binary actually. So I don't have to supply my templates separately. They are all embedded in the binary that I compiled with cargo build. So this now is the template, and then I use this liquid parser builder, whatever, some code, and pass the template itself. So it might be a little confusing template in the first one. These two is the template as an HTML, as the file looks like. Okay, and this one is already a template object of the liquid type. Okay, the liquid template type. Okay, so this is already a processed object, or whatever we call it. Then we create with this liquid object thing macro. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like the shadowing. Okay, so of course it's confusing, but yeah, it's shadowing. Okay, so this globals, I have no idea why I called it globals. Probably because this is how it's the example, the default example it shows in the liquid documentation. Using this macro will set up these variable and value pairs in this case. So I showed you the title and the content fields. So this is how where we fill them in, okay? And this is not very nice because the title is really hard-coded. It should have been taken somehow from the markdown maybe, but I didn't want to go in too deep in that one. And then use the template render where we combine the template with this data, which is in the globals. And this one generates, and this should be also HTML if I really want to do shadowing, but at this point I didn't want to. So this is basically the generated HTML, still in memory, and then I write it out into the index.html file. Okay, And then, of course, this could have been written much nicer. I wrote it about an hour before the meeting, so it could be improved, obviously. Let's try to run it, cargo run. Okay. Okay, it worked. Git status. Okay, the whole thing is the temp. Okay, so we changed a couple of things. Okay, git add, git commit -m templates. Okay, and I push it out. So now it will regenerate again the site, this time using already the templates. And I think that's going to be it. Let me see. Okay, it's still yellow working. I think that's it. It was twice as long as I planned. Sorry about it, but apparently it took more time to show everything. So what we are going to do now is if you have some questions, I'm happy to answer on the video. Then we stop the video. I ask all the people who are watching the video and all those who are here to please go on to YouTube and like the video and follow my channel and get onto the Code Mavens meetup page, so we'll be notified when we have upcoming meetings and upcoming videos. If you liked it, then please also support me on those various platforms. And those who are here in this workshop, we can stay and we can go on that you are now doing, trying to set this up, and I can help you. The second part that I was planning to do, that I'm going to write that project, I don't think that we will be able to fit into the time, because I thought that this will take 30 minutes and that will take an hour or two. It will be way too long, so probably I'll have to schedule a separate session for that, maybe, or I'm going just to write it on my own, because I would like to have it. Now I just thought about that project earlier today, and I thought, oh, that would be a really nice occasion to write it today, but we basically ran out of the time. So getting back to this, I'm reloading this. It looks slightly better, hopefully. If you look at the source code, then you can see the HTML, and here in the middle somewhere there is the content, and there seems to be some HTML issue. Okay, probably with I didn't put the template properly, but that's it. Okay, from here you can go on, do all kind of other things, all kind of interesting things. There is this the code basically this is ssg.codemaven. This is the one I'm working on, and this is used for the Code Maven website and for a couple of my projects. I'm using it. So a couple of my crates they have there. For example, there is the banner. What it's called? It's called Banner Builder. So that's another one of my projects. I should really have some design here. Yes, I know, but that's not my forte, to say it whatever language. So you can take a look at how I use it in a crate to have the website of the crate in the same repository. Anyway, I think that's it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Please like the video and share it with all kind of other people. And those who are here, see you after the video if you stay. Bye-bye.